you are joining us live on Zoom and you have questions about this specific lesson we're about to start, please write that in the Q&A. Everything else goes to chat, only about today's class and any classes, anything related to today's class in Q&A. So today we're going to do a class. We've talked this a little bit about before in expressing an opinion. We're going to be a little bit more blunt today. This is how to complain. We're doing how to complain for a couple reasons. One, this is Israel. We love to complain. That's not just a joke. It actually is part of the campaign ahead of all election days for the last several years. The public service announcement is always talking about how much we love to complain. Let's actually do something about it. Get out the vote, regardless of who you vote for. We also know this is the case because there are many, many Facebook, social media groups, networking groups that are specifically for Olim like us and they essentially become a place to complain. Sometimes legitimate complaints, sometimes cross-cultural differences, whatever it may be, we love to complain. This is also a preview as we are starting in-person classes here in Tel Aviv for young professionals in Hebrew called Speakeasy. We're hoping to take it to other places around the country, but we're piloting here in Tel Aviv for young professionals. And tomorrow we're starting with how to complain with some live practice. But today we're going to talk about how to complain in a variety of ways, in a variety of levels of manners. Don't worry, those of you, and I know we have a couple very, not a couple, but we have some people who are concerned about the use of certain language. Linguists will tell you that all language is good, including what we call expletives or curse words. I myself believe it's a very important part of language. But we are going to go through, I would say, up to PG and PG-13 level language. If that's too hard for some of you, you're welcome to mute. And I'm going to show you a very practical way that actually your local governance, your local municipality encourages you to complain. I'm going to take you through that on the convenience of your cell phones in a little bit. So with that, let me share the screen of today's vocabulary. Let me just pull it up here. There it is. Okay, as always, you are welcome to screenshot this old school pen and paper. If you are signed up through us at Nefesh B'Nefesh to join us live on Zoom, even if you can't join us live, you'll receive a copy of this by email. It'll also be uploaded to the YouTube recorded video in the next few days. So if you can't get it all down, don't worry, you can review the lesson at your leisure. So let's jump right into it. To complain. We talked about this word in a couple places, both how to express an opinion and also common Anglo mistakes. And when I talk about common Anglo mistakes, meaning certain sounds and certain words and certain combination of letters that native English speakers have a hard time with. This word is one of those. And you really want to practice saying this word. Don't worry, I'm going to give you other examples of other synonyms for lehitlonen, to complain, because it's a hard word to say. That tla, that tough lamed sound is difficult. Lehitlonen. It's really important that you pronounce both the tough and the lamed. If you mush them together, they sound like tl, tl. Apparently, that's a very common feature of languages such as in Latin America and in the Americas in general. But tl is really important. If you can't pronounce this word, don't try and substitute or take out letters. The classic is the story, and we've talked about this before, of someone learning Hebrew at Haratzofim at Hebrew University's campus, and they want to have the full immersion. And so they're learning in Hebrew. They have a native Hebrew speaking roommate. They go back to their room after a hard day of Hebrew and they're really tired, and they say in Hebrew, I had a really hard day. Ani rotza, because it was a woman, as the story goes, Ani rotza, and she wants to say Ani rotza lehitlonen. She can't say that tl sound. So instead she says something that replaces the taf with an aleph, which is easier for her to say, but in Hebrew, that means to pleasure yourself. Not what she meant. The roommate turned white in the face and said, do you want me to leave? And she said, no, I had a really hard day. I need you here because I need to complain. But that's not what she said. Long story, Lehitlonen. If you can't say that, don't worry, there are synonyms coming. A complaint, however, is a tluna. This word you don't have to worry about. It's not going to be construed as anything else if you can't say it correctly, but it still is tluna. As you see here, the transliteration on the right-hand side. Okay, tluna, by the way, is the word that we use filing a complaint with the police. Anytime you need to file any sort of complaint, customer service, anything like that is the word tluna. And we're going to talk about an expression to use with this word in a little bit, more formal, more polite Hebrew about exactly complaining. All right, let's move on. Livakir. Livakir, row 5. Livakir, many of you know as the verb for to visit, right? Livakir also means to criticize. Okay, it also means to criticize. It's all about the context and the prepositions you use after it. Typically, levaker et means to criticize something. Levaker be means to visit something. Okay, so as it says here, it's to criticize. From the same root, bet kuf resh, we get a bunch of words that are very related. And that's why I included them here in talking about synonyms about to complain. But levaker really means to critique or to criticize. Bikoret. Bikoret is criticism or critique. Okay, so a bikoret misada, a restaurant review, right? In the context of reviewing something, like talking about its pluses and minuses, we can use the word bikoret. And along with that, even though we're talking about to complain, complaining can also be positive. Here's a great example, bikoret bona. Bikoret bona, literally building criticism, constructive criticism, right? Even in Hebrew, even in Israel, we have a term for this, bikoret bona, constructive criticism, an important way to convey an opinion, but especially how to complain in order to be heard. Along with the same root is the person who does the critiquing, who does the criticizing, is a mivakir, or mivakeret if they're female, mivakrim, mivakrot, a critic. Okay, so mivaker misadot is a restaurant critic, literally the of restaurants. Okay, so mivaker, mivakeret, mivakrim, mivakrot. Okay, sorry, just need to do one more technical thing up here. There we go. Okay, if you're having issues, by the way, writing in the chat, even though we're not looking at the chat during this class, you're welcome to write in your comments, critiques, requests, and so forth in it. Okay, let me just make sure that's open. Okay. So Mivakir is a male critic. A specific type of critic that's important in Israel, you actually have these in a lot of democratic countries, is a Mivakir HaMedina. Or if the position is held by a female, Mivakeret Hamdina. Mivakir Hamdina is the state ombudsman. Okay, this is the person who is in charge of reviewing government policy and action. It's a big deal here in Israel. Again, we love criticism, we love complaining, but Mivakir Hamdina is the address for issues that have to do with the government. They also will release an annual report that's covered by all the major news sources here in Israel, and it covers everything from military and defense to transportation to health to you name it, to budgetary issues. It's a very important position. It's a government appointed position, but it's meant to be neutral. So they are meant to criticize the government, even that they were appointed to. A very important position. Those of you, by the way, who have been to the Nefesh B'Nefesh office in Jerusalem, you know that this is sitting right next door to the office. The compound where Nefesh B'Nefesh has their office is Mivakir Hamdina. I think that's a nice combination of the two. Okay, let's get to some other synonyms for to complain. Leha'ir. Leha'ir with an ayin. And we talked about spelling a few weeks ago, folks. This is where it's important. Spelling is always important in Hebrew. You cannot substitute like-sounding letters, even by accident. They will mean totally different things. This is a great example. Leha'ir means to comment. Okay, it can also mean to wake someone up. They mean both the same things. I'm actually going to write this up here. To wake someone up. Also, to wake someone up. However, you must spell this with an ayin. Okay, if you were to spell this with an aleph, it would mean to illuminate. To comment, to illuminate, that's a more artistic connection between the two. But leha'ir with an ayin means to comment. He'ara is a comment, right? Or anything, and it's a comment in a very general sense. It can also be a comment like you raised an issue up with someone. It could be just like you wake someone up. It's something that you raise up as an issue. So a comment, but meaning that you are raising up an issue. He'arat Shulaim was a film here in Israel a couple years ago. He'arat Shulaim is a footnote, right? He'ara is a comment. Shulaim are the edges. We use that word for the shoulders on a road. But shulaim are also the edges, like the margins, is another way to explain that. So the marginal comments, or the comments in the margins, footnotes. Okay, let's get to some other synonyms for to complain, because sometimes part of our way to complain is also to use specific words, or an equally important, and this is what we're going to talk about both in this class and in my new class for young professionals tomorrow. Complaining is also about being complained to or at, meaning it's great that you are complaining about something. Sometimes you are the cause of a complaint. So you also need to be able to hear that and what people are saying about you. And sometimes these words are going to be used by you, but also about you, no less important. So let's get to some of these. Lekater. Lekater is one of my favorite words. It means to gripe, but to gripe is not the right sentiment here. To gripe in the sense of really getting steamed up about something. And why do I know it's steamed up? Because one of the ways we use this word is the root of this word in particular has to do with steam, right? A steam iron, megahetz kitul, or a katar is one of the parts of a steam locomotive. And when you watch that public service announcement, which by the way, you can watch on YouTube about election day, it talks about kama sheYisraelim oavim lekater, 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 how much they love to gripe, right? But it's really to get steamed up about something. That's what this word means. But it can also be to complain. All of these words can be translated to complain. I'm giving you a little bit more of a nuance in how to say them. Okay, next one, leyalel. Leyalel is not necessarily what you think you're doing, but rather, like I talked about before, what someone thinks about you. So leyalel can mean to whine. And it's to whine, we'd use this word as like animals whine, like dogs and jackals, as we have here in Israel, whining. Children whine, even adults whine. This is to complain, but to whine about something. Okay, and lehitbachien is a great word. It's really, it's pretty judgy, to put it mildly. Lehitbachien comes from both the same root, bet chaf he, as livkot, to cry. Bechi is like a deep cry. Bachyan is a crybaby, right? It comes from, we create a noun or a person who does livkot, who cries, is a bachyan. And we call that very much a crybaby, is the best way to translate it. So lehit bachien is to become a crybaby, to be a crybaby, to whine over something, to complain. But again, listen to all these differences in these words, like lekater, leyalel, lehitbachien. Lehitbachien is not just to complain, right? You would never say about yourself, ani mitbachien al, I'm being a crybaby over something, right? Someone is complaining about you or about your complaints. So again, Communication goes both ways in general, especially when we're talking about logic of complaint, because sometimes we are not innocent and sometimes we do deserve a complaint lodged against us. Question is what language we're using to both convey that to ourselves, towards us and to other people. Litbachien is to be a crybaby. No less important when we're talking about complaining. Okay, two expressions very similar to each other in the most formal Hebrew possible to complain. And why do I include these here? Because I'm a fellow Oleh. I know what it's like moving to Israel. I know bureaucracy is bureaucrazy. Okay, I know the difficulties you have from utilities to neighbors to municipalities, even to police. From personal experience, using these two expressions, and I hope you're all listening very carefully if you're joining us live, or maybe rewind it a little bit and watch again if you're on YouTube, okay? These two expressions at the beginning of a sentence will go a lot farther than just rushing into a complaint or using some other form of Hebrew other than two of these possible very formal ways, very polite ways to express a complaint. And I have personal experience in this because I once had to complain to Dan, which is the regional bus company here in Tel Aviv, because the bus going to work did not stop several times. I issued a formal complaint in formal Hebrew on their website. All companies in Israel do indeed have a section to lodge complaints. I lodged a complaint using this exact language, and I got 100 shekels worth of vouchers. Folks, it is possible to get good customer service in Israel, and it is possible to not only complain, but to be heard. So please listen carefully as I explain these two ways to complain. They really do go a far, far way. Okay, let's start with option number one, and they're very similar to one another. ברצוני להגיש תלונה לגבי ונגד. Okay, ברצוני. ברצוני is super fancy formal Hebrew. You're not going to use this on an everyday basis whatsoever, but you are going to use this in situations where you need to complain to a governmental ministry, police, a company, like I said, with the Dan bus system, whatever it may be. Birtzoni is one of the few words I would categorize as business Hebrew. It's very formal. You are speaking in very formal terms and you are creating a very formal situation. And when you're lodging a complaint, oftentimes you need to use very formal language, just like you would in English. I would like to file a complaint, right? You wouldn't say that any other way if you were going, God forbid, to the police or to customer service of a company. The first round, right? You would be polite because you know politeness often gets you far. It is still very true in Israel. Birtzoni. Birtzoni comes from the word ratzon, will. It is my will. It is my intention to do what? Lehagish. Lehagish is to serve or to submit. Tluna, that word we had before, a complaint. Legabe or neged. Legabe means regarding, and neged, against. Okay, there's many other prepositions you could use here. These are two of the more common ones you're going to follow here, and then you're going to follow it with your complaint. Any complaint you have, you're going to use your dictionaries, you're going to use your own vocabulary to fill in the line, fill in the blank after neged or legabe, but starting your complaint with Birtzoni lehagish tluna is going to get you so much farther in life. Okay, another variation on that, using the word Birtzoni. Birtzoni lehabia emdati benogea le. Again, very fancy, very formal Hebrew, but it is very respectful Hebrew. And just like you want to be respected, other people do indeed want to be respected when you communicate. Birtzoni, it is my intention, or I would like to do what? Lehabia emdati. Lehabia emda is a great expression. It can mean a couple things. Lehabia emda can mean to make a stand, can mean to take a stand. In this case, it's to express my opinion. Emda is a stance from the root meaning to stand. Okay. Lehabia emda, to express an opinion or to make a stand. But this is lehabia emdati, right? We talked about suffixes the other week and how that changes things, and the pronoun suffix in this case is my, e. So in this case, ברצוני להביע עמדתי. I would like, or it is my intention, or it is my will to express my opinion. להביע עמדתי, to express my stance. Or in this case, it's better translated into English, to express my opinion. בנוגע ל, in connection to or regarding something. נוגע comes from the same verb meaning to touch, right? So it's concerning, it's regarding, touching the subject of, and then you fill in the rest. Okay, again, these two expressions in row 18 and 19, when you get this vocabulary sheet on YouTube or by email, write these down, practice them hard, because as your Hebrew improves, you want to use these to start getting your voice heard. And when you start feeling frustrated about how to complain, here are two great examples of how to do it at the highest level possible to charm and disarm. Charm and disarm works in Israel. I promise it does. I've been here long enough. It really does. Okay, let's get to some less polite ways to say it. It's not the worst ways, but it's certainly not as polite as starting with ברצוני. It's probably the ones you hear on a more regular basis. Let's be a little honest here. Okay. סליחה. Now, סליחה, when we say that and we start with the it's different than starting with slicha. If we're just trying to get someone's attention, right? We're in a store and we're trying to get a store worker's attention to help us out. You can say slicha, and that's very polite. But if you say slicha, you are being very towards the same store attendant. You're being very self-centered. You are showing your lack of patience, or your contempt of the person, because that makes it very combative, if it were. Okay, slicha is also a way that I use on a regular basis, whether it's to someone who cuts in line or someone who's blocking. I am a city boy through and through, and when someone stops in the middle of a sidewalk, they will get an earful from me, even if it's just slicha, very loud, very firm in their ear to make sure they're not entitled to stop in the middle of the sidewalk. Adding that at the beginning makes this like, excuse me, right? Just like we would say in English, in American English in particular, excuse me, where you go up at the end. Even if you are intending that to be an innocent question, it's not. It comes off, and tone is no less important than the words we use in languages. That tone is very fight stance. It's very aggressive. Slicha is getting someone's attention so that you can then complain to them, but it's a preamble, and it's already understood you're about to say something negative to that person or about someone else, but you need someone's attention to do that with. Okay, another way to complain. Mamash lo mekubal. Now, this could be used as a standalone, or it could be preceded by the word ze, meaning this or that, or it could be followed by something, or it could be more specific. I could say, slicha, mamash lo mekubal. This is not acceptable. Mamash, we've talked about this word before several weeks ago. It means very or much. In this case, it's very unacceptable. Okay, very much not acceptable, or very much unacceptable when my English comes back. Let me just, very much unacceptable. Okay, lo mekubal means unacceptable. But mamash lo mekubal is absolutely not acceptable. And I can add words before and after it to further emphasize that. Ze mamash lo mekubal. This is not acceptable. This is very much not acceptable. Or if I want to personalize it, mamash lo mekubal alai. It's not acceptable to me that so-and-so. Okay, al is what it would be followed by. And let me write that in here already, just so you know. If you wanted to further specify to whom or to what something is not acceptable. Okay, mamash lo mekubal al, right? So for example, if I was waiting in line, Or let's say I was in a restaurant and it took longer than usual. And that does, again, exist in Israel, where it takes longer than usual to wait for food. And the waiter or waitress stops by, you can say to them, slicha, ze mamash lo mekubal. Excuse me, it's very much unacceptable. Firm, not the most polite, but it's firm and it's direct. It's a bit aggressive, but in a situation where you're really waiting for food for a long time or for service, it's probably necessary. Okay, this is one of the classic passive-aggressive comments in any language, English definitely, and Hebrew for sure. Im kol hakavod. Im kol hakavod with an aleph, with the first word. Im kol hakavod means with all due respect, right? And we know, just like in English, when you say with all due respect, you don't have much respect for the person you're referring to. Same thing in Hebrew. If you say im kol hakavod, start of a sentence, you're about to launch into a complaint. And there's an optional thing to it to really emphasize this passive aggressiveness. Im kol hakavod veyesh kavod, right? Kavod means honor or respect. And there was a long-standing skit on Eretz Nehederet, which is Israel's flagship satire show. And one of the panelists on the fake news show was making fun of a journalist who turned into a politician, Shali Yachimovich, and her tagline was, "Im kol slicha." She would actually start with slicha, "Im kol hakavod veyesh kavod," with all due respect, and there is respect, right? Again, you're double downing on the respect because you don't have respect for the person you're about to complain against or what you're about to complain against. So im kol hakavod is also a great way to start complaining or criticizing or critiquing something. And another one, this one I have a love-hate relationship because I know this one coming a mile away. When someone says to you, especially a boss, but also a contemporary or anyone else in a work setting, says ani tohe or ani toha, depending on their gender, I wonder if, right? We know, again, same thing as in English. If someone starts with a sentence and they say, ze metzuyan, this is wonderful, ani pashut tohe im, I just wonder if, you know that they're trying to be polite about a critique that they genuinely believe, if not think that what you just presented or what you just demonstrated was not good. Okay, ani toheim if you're male, ani tohaim if you're a female. Okay, so just turning on the mazgan, the air conditioner. Ani tohe, ani tohaim. I wonder if. Okay, a great way to complain because it's masked in a very polite way, but it's ultimately both passive aggressive and it still invites the listener into what they're being what's being complained about or what's being critiqued. Because remember, we had that word before, levaker can mean both to complain but also to criticize or to critique. Okay, so a couple other ways. These are, I have to say, rows 21, 22, 23, and 24, the most common ways you're going to hear someone complaining in Israel, certainly in a work setting, certainly in a more calm way. Okay, and we're not going to get to expletives in this specific class. We are going to get to some more heated ways to complain about something. These four are the start of a complaint. Okay, albeit in a somewhat nice way. Okay, this one we've talked about before. A classic way to complain is to go over the person's head that you're talking to, whether it's customer service on the phone or online or in person, how to speak to the manager. We've gone over this before. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but these are the two ways to ask, can I speak with the manager? Either, may I speak with the manager, row 26, which is the more polite way to say it, אפשר לדבר עם המנהל, or אפשר לדבר עם המנהלת, if you know the gender of the manager. Manager is menahel, male, menahelet, female, but if you don't know, you can just pick one or the other. Okay, it's not considered impolite if you don't know the gender of someone and you're just guessing in this case. Efshar ledaber, we've talked about this word multiple times. Efshar is the most polite way to ask a question in this context. So you are being polite and deferential to the person you're speaking to, but still being firm. You're going over their head. Okay, and the great thing about אפשר לדבר עם המנהל, there is no conjugation needed here. The only thing that needs to be conjugated is minahel or minahelet if you know the gender of the manager. If not, you just pick one. This, however, 27 is both more direct, it's a bit more aggressive, and you need to conjugate. אני רוצה, male, or אני רוצה, female, לדבר עם, I want to speak with, המנהל or המנהלת שלך, שלך. This one is very much pick your own, choose your own adventure. You need to conjugate רוצה or רוצה based on who you are, wanting something. Wanting what? To speak with, excuse me, לדבר עם, המנהלת, again, the gender of the manager, מנהל, male, מנהלת, female, or, and then, שלך or שלך. שלך if you are speaking to male, שלך if the person you're speaking to is female. Okay, so this one has 1, 2, 3 different touching points that you need to conjugate for. אני רוצה, מנהל, and שלך or שלך. Okay, and that's important. Sorry, that's important so that, just 1 second. That's important, again, if you are having issues with conjugation and how to conjugate on the spot, pick the more polite way to say, may I speak with the manager, instead of, I want to speak with the manager. Okay, kindness does go far, even when you're getting to this level of confrontation and complaining. Okay, and you don't have to conjugate, which is even better. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now we're getting into more gruff ways to say it. Again, PG, PG-13, we are not using curse words in this specific class. We can do so in a future class if you would like, but in the meantime, some classic ones. Ma pitom. Ma pitom is an idiom. It is not to be translated literally. Pitom means suddenly. And what is ma? Ma pitom means what the hell, or what the heck, for those of you who, for your sensitivities, sorry, not sorry, I'd never get that one. What do you mean? What's going on? But in a very aggressive way, which is best translated into English as what the hell. Okay, ma pitom. Great way. And you use this not just as an expletive, but as complaining. If someone cuts you off in a line or in the parking lot or in something like that, you can simply scream ma pitom, both to get their attention and to start lodging a complaint, because that is a complaint in that context. The other one, and this is one of my favorite verbs because we talked about spelling and pronunciation the other week. If you can pronounce ayin, this sounds really good and really forceful. And it sounds like that just in English, the verb to dare. Right? How dare you? When someone says, how dare you, or you say that, that's really strong language in English. Same thing in Hebrew. Echata ma'ez. And I like pronouncing the ayin strong there, but you can simply say, echata ma'ez. And you have to really, say this strongly when you use this expression, like a question mark, exclamation point, like you see here. Echata ma'ez, or if you're saying it to a female, that's for a male, to a female, echat me'iza. Okay, it's strong. How dare you? Great. It's maybe not as expletive filled as ma pitom, but it's still very forceful, very direct, even aggressive. In Hebrew, great way to stop someone in their track, understanding they did something wrong, at least in your opinion. Okay, another great expression that gets us into a whole list of words about complaining and also why we would want to complain. Ata ma'atzben oti or at ma'atzbenet oti. This one you'll hear all the time. Ata ma'atzben oti is to a male. At ma'atzbenet oti to a female. They both mean you're annoying me. Okay, it can be also you are peeving me off, or if we're going to say it a little bit more appropriately, you're pissing me off, you're annoying me, whatever, however you want to translate it. Ata me'atzben oti, at me'atzbenet oti. To a female, you're annoying me. It's a great one. You're going to hear this one all the time. Usually it's best preceded by the sound oof. We talked about nonverbal communication a few weeks ago. Oof, ata me'atzben oti. Say it like that, you get the person's attention, you make it abundantly clear that they are not happy with what you did. And by the way, that also goes if someone says that to you. So let's know both sides of that. Le'atzben is to annoy, to bother. Lehitatzben is to get annoyed. Okay, it's using the same exact root, but it's a different conjugation. We've talked about this before for verbs called binyanim. Le'atzben is to annoy. It's a direct action versus to get annoyed. It's something reflexive. To become annoyed or to get annoyed, lehitatzben. And the act of it, the adjective to describe someone who is annoyed or nervous is atzbani, right? Because if someone's atzbani, they're full of atzavim. Atzavim are nerves, right? So if someone's annoyed, they're moving around, they're nervous, they're pacing, there's something like that, they're annoyed. That's the idea of where this word comes from in Hebrew. Okay, some other words about complaining are also what you will do to someone, or you're referring to what someone is doing to you that's worth complaining about. There are a lot of things, obviously, in the world to that register a complaint or should. I'm just going to do a few. Okay. Lafria. Lafria means to bother. This is, you can conjugate this verb however you would like. It's usually followed by preposition le. So al tafria li, don't bother me. Okay. Lehatrid. Lehatrid or lehatrid, depending on how you say the letter resh, to hassle or to molest. Okay, unfortunately, we do have this in Israeli society. Hatrada minit is sexual harassment or sexual assault. They both are used the same expression, hatrada minit. Okay. Lehitalel, to abuse. Lichos, to become angry. And lizom, to become enraged. Za'am is rage. Lizom is to become enraged. Just like ka'as is anger, lichos is to become angry. Okay, all these verbs you can simply use are the website pe'alim.com. You can also use your own verb conjugation dictionary. I'm not going to go into each of these, but these are verbs that you can use. Again, both registering a complaint, someone is doing this to you, or in the context of complaining, you or someone else are doing these actions. Now, I always like to add a positive spin to things. It's not just about complaining, it's also about finding a solution to your complaining or what you're complaining about. And I'm going to show you that on the app shortly. But here are some words and verbs about getting your complaint, your tluna, solved. First off, lehatzia. Lehatzia is to offer. Okay, to propose is another word that you could use. Not to propose necessarily marriage, but to propose an idea, to offer an idea. Let me have that here. Lehamlitz is to suggest. Leoded, to encourage. Lidrosh, to demand. Okay, all these words go into trying to solve a complaint, right? It's not enough to just complain about something. You also need to come up with what's the alternative that you would prefer or that you see as being the most likely. If that's news to you folks, please learn that now. Okay, some other ones that go with that exact idea in mind. Lehafik lekachim. This is a great expression you will hear all the time in the news. It's a very important one, even if it's not actually done, but it's one that you want to hear from the people responsible for things. Lehafik lekachim is to learn a lesson or to learn lessons. Lekach is a lesson. Lekachim is lessons. Think of it more like a moral lesson or a lesson after the fact, not a lesson as in an academic lesson. It's a more experiential, a life lesson, if you will. Lehafik lekachim, to learn your lessons, right? So you'll hear this after something, God forbid, terrible happens. Nafik lekachim. We will learn our lessons from the event. you'll often hear in the news as a quote. Cheshbon nefesh, those of you who come with a more traditional Jewish background, you know this term already. We use this term towards Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur about taking stock of what we've done in the past year with regards to our actions and forgiving and being forgiven. Cheshbon nefesh is exactly that. Cheshbon is an account. It's literally an account. And it also comes from the word to, the same words we use for to think and computer and to calculate, and nefesh is soul, right? So cheshbon nefesh is best translated in a secular context as self-reflection. Okay, again, when we're complaining or we're being complained about, this is an important part of that process sometimes. Ir'ur is a difficult word to say. Ir'ur may be a little bit easier for those of you who have who say resh, but ir'ur is an appeal, like in court. Petition, which oftentimes gets translated as appeal, but it's slightly different, is an atira, right? Again, complaining also takes place in the judicial setting. One of the ways you complain is not just lahagish tluna, it's also an atira, it's a petition. And equally in complaining is also trying to get to a solution. One of the ways you solve things is lehit pasher. Lehit pasher is to compromise. And a compromise is a pshara. Okay, before I get to your questions, I promised you an app. Many of you who have made Aliyah with Nefesh B'Nefesh received a refrigerator magnet with a lot of helpful information. If not, it's available on their website and anywhere else in online. And it has all the major service numbers in Israel. Remember, in Israel, we have individual numbers for police, fire, ambulance, and so forth. One of those service numbers is 106. 106 is your municipality's hotline. This is essentially for all non-emergencies, okay? Major cities in Israel, major municipalities have not only on their website a section where you can, where's that term? Lehagish tluna, to offer a complaint, to serve a complaint regarding something municipal. They also have apps. So the major, if you simply go into, whether you're on Android or Apple, go into your app store and type in 106, you'll often see a whole list of them, or you type in Hebrew the name of your city. For example, and I'm going to take you through Tel Aviv's, whether you live here or not, it's an important one to know. Tel Aviv was one of the first to offer this as an app. Okay. See if you can see that. See if it can. It is not showing up. Let me see if I can show it to you elsewhere. As I'm talking, I'm going to see if I can show it to you online. But basically what it is, it's an app on your phone. There, you can see a little bit better if I pull it away. It's called 106 plus, 106 plus. If I were to call 106 right now, there is theoretically someone manning the lines 24/7 for anything from noise complaints to garbage to need for exterminators to all sorts of different things. And we're going to go through the list of the major things that often they hear about. Again, non-emergency services. And please reference for yourself service numbers if you don't know them. Go to the Nefesh B'Nefesh website. They have the whole list of them there. You can just type in also emergency numbers in Israel in Google. You'll get the whole list. I don't know them off the top of my head because they're in my phone. That's not what this class is about anyways. But 106 Plus is the name of their app. And if I click on the big white circle that you can see here, I get to the page that lists all the different ways, all the different major types of complaints one needs to have. Let me see if I can pull it up on their website just so I can show it to you what it looks like as well. Tel Aviv. Okay, but 106 also works when you call. And sometimes you are going to need to call. But this app is very quick. I've had to complain a number of times. One of the things you can complain about, by the way, is a electric bike or electric scooter that's otherwise rented out is blocking the street. That is considered a violation of municipal laws here in Tel Aviv, and you can go ahead and report them. It's also very cute because the Tel Aviv app is gamified. So the more complaints you issue, the more points you get. It's a little not nice, but okay, the website one is pretty old-fashioned. So I'm going to see again if I can show it to you on my phone instead, because the website is just a standardized form. Okay. It doesn't really work. Okay, but I'm going to go through these with you just so you know how it works. It has, what's really good about the Tel Aviv one, by the way, is that it also has pictures to go along with the complaints. So if you don't know what you want to complain about, or you don't know how to call it in proper Hebrew, it gives you the words here. So for example, the list of the major complaints that the municipality gets is removing tree clutter, tree clippings that are on the street. Oftentimes you'll see here in the city, whether it's private or public, a lot of trees that have been cut, pruned, and they're just in the middle of the street or the sidewalk and they're blocking traffic. Pinui aremat eshpa, removing a large amount of garbage. So this is also for mattresses, by the way, or you have a lot of stuff that you're moving out and you need to get rid of. They will do that for you through this app. What else on 106? The street is not clean. The street cleaners haven't been there yet. Tzoat klavim, dog refuse, that dog owners have let their dogs go to the bathroom in the street, and by law, they're supposed to pick up after them, and they haven't. By the way, at least here in Tel Aviv, because most dogs are microchipped, they can then do a DNA test to see who that was and issue a complaint, issue a ticket to the dog owner. Ginat Tziburit Meluchlechet, that a public park is dirty. Hadbara or Yetushim, extermination or mosquitoes, meaning that there are rats or there's too many mosquitoes in an area, please send the city's extermination efforts. Gumar Reka Midracha and Ritzuf Meforak, that there's a missing tile or brick in the street that's causing people to trip. Pinui Mechal Eshpa Yarok Male, to get rid of a completely full garbage can, a green garbage can. Timur or Simun Kvish Chaser, there's a missing traffic sign at an intersection. By the way, that also goes with traffic stops. The next one is Panas Rechov Lo Takin, that a street lamp is not working. That one, by the way, if you want to do the gamified version here on the app, you get a lot of points if you do that, because there are a lot of lights who are often out on the street. And Kli Shitufi Chosem, another one you'll get a lot of points if you use the Tel Aviv app. A shared vehicle is blocking a street or a sidewalk. You can also add your own in here. And what you're going to do is once you pick one of these, and again, it's an infographic. It's a graphic. You're going to pick one. Let's say Panas Rechov Lo Takin, street lamp is not working. It's going to ask you to put in any specific details that's beyond just there's a street lamp, but then it's going to ask you, Abba, you can upload a picture. This is really important for making your case. You'll open up a picture. You'll also add, using Google Maps, you'll add what address you're at. This is a really good tool. And then you're going to press Haba. You're going to lodge the complaint. And then what's great about this is, again, you didn't have to use a whole lot of Hebrew just now to do this, because those infographics are the majority of what people complain about. Number one, and number two, they follow up. You will get in the app a status update in Hebrew, of course, of where your complaint stands. And if it needs to escalate to someone actually coming and taking care of it by the municipality, they will call you or leave you an SMS as to where things stand. Really great. If we're talking about how to complain, this is an effective way to complain. I'm not going to say don't use your Facebook or WhatsApp groups to complain, but this is an effective way to complain because it also has a solution involved. Someone actually comes and works on it. Okay, stop here, answer some questions in the Q&A. If you've written your question in the chat, this is your chance to write in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll look it over in the next few days, but the Q&A is what I'm looking at right now. All right, let me just pull up the lesson again. Sorry, just 1 second. As I read your questions. Share screen. Okay, so constructive criticism is not positive criticism. We don't use that term. It's called bikoret bona, constructive criticism. It's building on it, okay? Positive or negative is a little bit more subjective. Constructive criticism, it's got a solution. It's got an offer of a solution with it. Someone asks, is state ombudsman the same as local ombudsman? No. Great question. Mevaker hamdina, hamdina, state, is implying Medinat Israel. Okay, it's short for Medinat Israel. It is not a local ombudsman. If you want to say a local ombudsman, you're going to use the word for local. Mevaker mekomi, or mevaker ha'iriya. Let me add that here. Oh. Control, mevaker ha'iriya. Okay, is the best way to say municipal ombudsman. Municipal ombudsman. Okay, but Mevaker Hamdina is specifically a national position. It is not a local one. Okay. Just 1 second. Let me pull up the Q&A. Okay. I heard koter or mikater is used as someone who is essentially a bachian. Did I misunderstand? Yes and no, right? Because as we said, likater, there we go. Likater means to gripe. Lihit bachian is to be a crybaby. These are often subjective or judging replies to our own complaining, or we say to someone else. They're all different ways to describe complaining, sometimes justified, sometimes not. Likater is really to get steamed up about something. Lehit bachian is to be a crybaby about something. Those are two very different things. Someone caught a great spelling mistake. As I just talked to you about spelling mistakes, I'm glad you are all paying attention. Thank you for listening to that lesson about spelling and punctuation and pronunciation. Im kol hakavod with an ayin, with all due respect. It is im with an ayin. Thank you for pointing that out. All right. Are there particular constructive ways to respond if someone lodges a complaint against you in one way or another? Great question. That's a great question. And we can think about our own interpersonal communication, how we best reply or don't. One way, we can simply say, Ani mekabel. If it'll let me write, Ani. You could say Ani shomea or Ani shomat otcha, I hear you. We could say Ani mekabel et habikoret shelcha. Right? These are two different ways we could say in replying to someone's complaint about us, right? We could say, I hear you. We could say, I take or I accept your criticism. Okay. And then continue on with there and replying to them. Is there a particular constructive way? Not necessarily. Again, think about very stereotypical Israelis. It's not always heard, bikoret bona is not always heard in the best way, if at all. So these are also great ways, just like we would in English or any other language, to politely respond to someone's critique. I heard ma pitom is as really, or are you kidding? Remember, we're talking about ma pitom as a complaint here. Okay, so are you kidding is also a complaint, by the way. Great point that you're saying that, but are you kidding me is a start of a complaint. But what the hell is very much a way to translate ma pitom. What is the website for verbs? pealim.com. We've shared this before in the past. Just write in pe'alim. It's spelled exactly as it sounds in Google, and it'll show up in the search. I went to Apple Store searching for 106 106 Plus, and it did not come up. I'm an Android person. Sorry about that. You can go to the your municipality's website. Here in Tel Aviv, it's telaviv.gov.il, or simply type in Tel Aviv municipality, or in Hebrew, Iriat Tel Aviv. However you'd like to use it, but yes, you can find it up on your own for Apple users, Android, for Tel Aviv, for Jerusalem, and for several other cities it exists. Okay. Yes, like I said, 106, let me make this clear. 106 as a number, as a service number. If I was to call right now 106, okay, I am in Tel Aviv. 106 would automatically connect me with the Tel Aviv municipality. If I was in Jerusalem, 106 would connect me with Jerusalem, and so forth. 106 is a service number, an emergency number that connects you with the nearest moked, the nearest service center. Okay, if you don't have the app, you can simply just call 106. Again, non-emergency services. You can also use your municipality's website to lodge the same type of thing you would with 106. Okay, I'm just saying to you, in addition to the phone number, in addition to the website, some, not all municipalities have an app. Okay, best to check with your own municipality. Also, remember, folks, this is an election year for all local municipalities. So if your local municipality does not have its own app, maybe you want to let people who are running for office know that you would like that. That's part of your obligation as citizens to make your voice heard. Again, people were asking me about specific cities. Folks, you can look this up on your own. I promise you have the research skills to find this out. What is the difference between le'atzben and lehatzik? Great question. Le'atzben here is to annoy. Lehatzik is also to annoy. It's a little bit more like getting under someone's skin. Lehatzik is really to really bother someone almost in a more physical way than le'atzben. Le'atzben, to annoy someone, is not necessarily physical, whereas lehatzik is really to annoy someone to the point of, like, think of someone in your ear buzzing or right up on you. That's more lehatzik. It's a more physical act. Okay, we are exactly at 9 o'clock. I am going to need to stop here. Toda rabah, as always, thank you all so much for joining. You will receive a recording of this lesson along with the spreadsheet of vocabulary in the next few days by email if you've registered with us on Zoom. If you have not, please do so. You can just simply email us at hebrew@nbn.org.il. Go to Nefesh B'Nefesh's website and register yourself, or this will show up in the next few days on youtube.com along with all of our previous lessons. I will see you all here next week when we go over one of my favorite topics and one of yours, slang and everyday expressions. And we're going to go through a list that's recently came out of the top 40 best expressions, the most Israeli expressions there are, according to one writer and comic. It's a great list and will really help your vocabulary and your communication skills. Until next week, toda rabah and lehitraot. See you all very soon.